What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and the overall markets. I'm going to break down some big pieces of news coming up for tomorrow to cause some high volatility, as it's going to be a big day with FOMC and big tech earnings coming out. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. So as far as Tesla's going, we're looking quite bullish right now because we have this nice looking inverse head and shoulders like pattern, and we have an accumulation that's been forming from a Wyckoffean standpoint. So with this forming, Tesla is still bullish because if you look at where my cursor is right here, we had this low, we came up, made a higher low, came up, and we keep on climbing higher slowly, looking for that 470 plus range. And eventually the high up here at 480 could even be retested if this continues. Now, even though that is what technical analysis suggests, let me be very clear that technical analysis will not be sufficient because there's other factors really affecting the volatility in the markets. And even though there's a higher probability of the technical move panning out, you also want to be very, very unbiased with FOMC and all these other factors because we never know what Jerome Powell will say. With that being said, that's why I want to break down the levels and be very unbiased about this and then talk about my prediction later on. Tesla does look like it might dip a little bit here because we closed just barely at 416. We're actually dipping a bit below it in the after hours. But even if we dip a bit and consolidate, this could just be another attempt for this to bounce and go higher if Jerome Powell helps us launch higher. But if we lose structure, we could start to dip lower. And if we end up breaking below these EMAs, there's still this gap down here to fill back down into the 430s. So will we go higher? Do we get a rug pull? Let's talk about the news affecting Tesla in the markets. Then I'll go into more details about the charts. Also, real quick, SPY and the QQQ are looking more bullish as they're making higher highs and higher lows, but there is still this gap down here on SPY to look at. We could still return to fill this gap in case we get a rug pull, or we could just continue to rally depending on how these things go. I'll talk more about the details in just a couple of minutes. Let's first talk about some Tesla news. So there's been some news coming out, according to a study conducted by Yale, that Tesla has lost between 1 million and 1.26 million sales, once again, over what's been happening because of Elon Musk's polarizing and partisan actions. That's how they kind of like describe this. They're saying that Elon Musk may have cost Tesla more than 1 million US sales. Now, once again, I just want to say that I don't think that we could truly encompass the true effects like that. I can't really say that, but I do agree that yes, Tesla sales were affected by Elon Musk's politics. I do agree with that to an extent. So yes, with Elon Musk being involved with certain things that did slow down Tesla's sales, but at the same time, I just want to make it very clear that we can't just kind of like look at Elon Musk in that light, and that's one of the big issues with biased, studies. If we're very, very biased with the way in which we analyze things, because at the same time, Elon Musk also is working to help generate trillions of dollars for Tesla and increase their sales into the millions as years go on. So we had one of Tesla's former vice presidents come out who was talking about how, for the short term, after we have the subsidies expire, such as the federal tax credit, of course, Tesla sales would drop. But then the longer term is going to be a very, very more positive curve. For the long term, Tesla sales will slowly continue to increase to the millions and eventually tens of millions of sales as years progress. Don't forget about that. Elon Musk is also benefiting Tesla by working on the robotaxi, the Optimus robots, and he's leading Tesla in so many different departments to help generate hundreds of billions, if not trillions, for the company. That's the reason why many shareholders are warning us that if Elon Musk's pay package does not get approved, he could even have to leave the company. And that's going to be a big blow for Tesla if that ends up happening. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the majority of shareholders will vote in favor of his pay package because, once again, Tesla thrives off that and Elon Musk. So what's my view of Elon? Let me just put this very, very bluntly. Yes, his politics is not the greatest for Tesla. I'm very much aware of that. I know that his politics has hurt Tesla to an extent. Could it have caused Tesla a million sales? I mean, maybe. I can't really say that for sure. But we can't just look at Elon Musk with that light. You also have to look at all the positive that he's doing for the world and Tesla. and he's leading them in so many different ways that's going to transform the world and the company and generate so much more revenue and growth. I believe that Elon Musk has done more good than bad for Tesla and that he deserves credit where it's due. And we can't just look at things from one view. That's my personal opinion. And you have to really consider the other things that we're working on. Elon Musk is leading us through the Optimus robots development. He's leading us through new manufacturing processes. And we also have other departments such as like the robotaxi, Optimus, Tesla energy storage, which is expanding, and their sales will continue to improve. So I just want to thank Elon, for all the work that he does alongside the whole Tesla team. Musk is not doing everything, but he is the right leader for the company, in my opinion. I think that he's still doing a great job. And once again, we just got to give him credits where it's due. Now, on top of this, we do have some good news coming out as Cantor Fitzgerald gave Tesla an overweight rating. The majority of ratings for Tesla have been more positive. The price-price ratio is also climbing as more buyers are continuing to step in. However, despite this, I just want to say that with all the news affecting Tesla, there's going to be another big factor, which is going to be FOMC. When CPI came out, all items CPI went up to some extent, but core CPI ended up going down. So just keep that in mind. Core CPI dropped, making the overall report very close to expectations, if not below them. So that's the reason why there's a 99.9% chance the Fed is going to give us a 25 basis point cut, and the stock market remains very optimistic. When is the Fed going to give us the cut? Here is the schedule for tomorrow. So for tomorrow, it's going to be Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. In the morning, we have crude data and very, very minor data to start things off, but things get serious starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At 2 p.m., we have the Fed interest rate decision coming out. We're going to most likely get a 25 basis point cut from the Fed. And then at 2:30 p.m., we have the press conference, meaning that we're going to be listening to what Jerome Powell and the Fed have to say. With the press conference coming out, Jerome Powell will say some very important things causing some high volatility. So be ready for that. And that's where we're going to see some very, very high volatility because I think that we're seeing a different view of this FOMC meeting. This is the first FOMC meeting in a long time. And the news is saying that the Fed is expected to end the 3-year phase of quantitative tightening this week. That is a big transition in monetary policy. Before, the Fed was raising rates and they were talking about how there was high inflation. But as of recent, the Fed is starting to cut again. And this is exactly what President Trump had wanted alongside many other analysts. Now, what's going on is the labor market is taking a hit. We're seeing unemployment going up. Even companies like Amazon are going to be laying off tens of thousands of employees as they just announced. So the layoffs are coming and the economy is taking a hit. So we're seeing the Fed basically working to kind of alleviate that, right? And that's the reason why they're trying to maintain their dual mandate to manage employment and inflation. So the Fed is now in a position where they are going to allow for more treasuries, and simultaneously they're going to once again kind of shift the way in which they are forming policy to a more quantitative easing standpoint. That is what reports suggest. If the Fed is now transitioning to quantitative easing, as in like more cheap money, more money printing and such, this could once again be more bullish for the stock market. That is what typically happens. And if they make that announcement, that could be bullish, but we don't know for sure until we hear it from Jerome Powell what he has to say about that. So if Jerome Powell is more hawkish, right, we could still see a bit of a sell-off in case he's more concerned about inflation, if he doesn't really give us the amount of dovishness that the market needs. But if he does the opposite and he starts talking about quantitative easing, but how there could be more cuts coming, and he remains more in favor of that, that could really help this market bounce. So we'll see if that ends up happening or not. Other factors for the markets include this. Nvidia is taking off right now because there's been a big deal that was signed where Nvidia is going to be building 7 new supercomputers for the US Department of Energy. That's a $500 billion deal. And then on top of this, we have President Trump, which is another factor. He is meeting up with many leaders across Asia. He just met up with Japan's prime minister. And very soon, he's going to be meeting up with Xi Jinping and signing a deal most likely. This may also have caused some high volatility, affecting semiconductors and all kinds of different products. This could also delay the export controls on minerals from China and also delay President Trump's tariffs, so we'll see how that ends up going. On top of this, I just want to add on that another big factor for tomorrow is this. Tomorrow is going to be Wednesday. In the morning, we have Verizon and Boeing announcing their earnings, and then after market close, we have Meta, Microsoft, and Alphabet. So we just got SoFi and PayPal's earnings. SoFi did relatively well, beating expectations when it comes to EPS and revenue, and we saw some great growth, and their guidance was increased. And then PayPal did the same thing. They increased their overall guidance, which is why the share price is up. So both of the companies did well today when it comes to earnings. So we'll see what happens with the big tech earnings tomorrow. That's why it's going to be a big day. We have big tech earnings and FOMC, so be ready for that. And then for Thursday, we're getting closer to President Trump's meeting with Xi Jinping. Now, the fear and greed index is currently at fear. We're going to see how this is affected. Momentum is at greed right now, and then we're actually seeing the put to call option ratio at neutral. So for now, the market has a more neutral phase, and we'll see what happens as time goes on. So what do I think the market's going to do? Let's talk about this. If we open tomorrow, I think Tesla might dip a little bit for that 455 area as we're starting to dip a bit, and we're going to be looking for some consolidation. Then at 2 o'clock p.m., the Fed is going to make the rate decision. And at 2:30 p.m., we have the Fed press conference. I would not be surprised if we see a little like pop and drop, something like this when it comes to the Fed decision. And then when the press conference starts with Jerome Powell's speech, either Jerome Powell causes Tesla to dump below 450. If we lose 450 on Tesla, there is going to be a risk of us returning towards this gap support around the lower 440 area. That's going to be the more bearish case if Jerome Powell gives us the rug pull, so be ready for that just in case. But if it's the opposite, if Tesla starts to bounce and if we get a big push thanks to Jerome Powell, if Jerome Powell is not as hawkish, he ends up being more dovish, and he starts talking about quantitative easing, the stock market may love that, especially as we approach President Trump's big meeting. If Tesla could get back above 465 and hold it, I would not rule out the completion of this inverse head and shoulders, which could take us back up towards the 470s, if not 480 as our target for more upsides. That's going to be the more bullish case. However, I think that here's the way I kind of like see this, right? I think that Tesla will likely surpass $500 by the year end, as I talked about based on previous indicators. So, in case Tesla does get the rug pull, if Jerome Powell gives us the rug pull to 430, this could be another buying opportunity for a big rally for the end of the year. If Jerome Powell just helps us run and we just start running for like 480, we could once again play this. We'll see if we even get closer to $500 before we see some kind of pivot. And if Tesla dumps from there, that's also another way to kind of look at things, right? But honestly, it depends on what Jerome Powell tells us. Tomorrow morning, I think Tesla dips a little bit. We're going to likely retest 455 to 450. We could bounce depending on the rate decision. Then we're looking for some consolidation. Then Jerome Powell either launches this higher for new highs, back above 465 for the 470s, or we get a bigger rug pull back down towards the 440 area. So it all depends on Jerome Powell. Hopefully, we try to go higher. Technicals suggest that Tesla wants to continue to uptrend as we have an inverse head and shoulders, and we're going for the 480 area. So we'll see how that goes if we get that bounce or not. But be very patient at least nonetheless, and we'll see what happens as time goes on. For other tickers, we also have SPY, which is looking more bullish. We're making higher highs and higher lows, at least thus far. Now, if we're bullish, okay, if we're bullish on SPY, you want to see us basically hold above that 688 area. If we do that, we're looking for 690 plus as our potential targets. If we're bearish and we end up losing 685, we could be dipping to 682. If that fails us, we could be looking for this gap pull back down towards 677. Now, it depends on what Jerome Powell says, right? He either dumps us to like 685 then 682 to start dumping, or he pumps us above 688 to pump higher. From a technical analysis standpoint, as of right now, we look more bullish. We just keep on getting bought back up. So this chart is still framing that it wants to go higher for new all-time highs. Jerome Powell being more dovish and causing the market to pump seems a bit more probable, but we'll see just to be safe. You never know, so be very unbiased with the way in which you play things. Keep that in mind, at least for now. Same thing with the QQQ. We're still bullish. We're actually pushing in the after hours again, so we're still looking bullish. Higher high, higher low, a nice breakout so far. If we're bearish, just hypothetically, if we're bearish, okay, you want to see the QQQ essentially lose 629. If that fails us, we could be dipping to 623. If we're bullish, you want to see us basically continue to break past 635. If that breaks, 640 becomes very possible. The QQQ is making higher lows so far, and this may continue to uptrend for 640 plus. 635, then 640 are likely going to be our targets if this continues. We will see if Jerome Powell is going to announce quantitative easing or not, but technicals do look a bit more bullish for the markets, right? And with the QQQ and SPY potentially pumping, that could also benefit Tesla. The technicals look more bullish for most stocks. On the IWM, we look a little bit weaker though. We are favoring a dip towards like 246 or so. Then we'll see if Jerome Powell causes a big bounce or the big rug pull. Could go either way, but look for a little bit more downside. ES is looking more bullish overall. Unless we lose 6,900, if we lose that, we could be dumping to fill this gap. But if we break past 6,940, we're looking for a big pump. So we're going to see what happens as time goes on. But overall, the setup is still more bullish. So we'll see how it goes. On NQ, if we end up losing basically 6,000, we're looking for a dip to 25,800. If we break resistance, we're looking for a big breakout. We could be going either way. As of right now, we look a bit more bullish. On Bitcoin, we have a double top right here. If we lose 112,000, we're looking for a big dump. If we break past 115,000, we're looking for a pump. We could be going either way, so be very, very patient nonetheless. I do think that this might bounce tomorrow and just consolidate around 114,000, and we're just waiting for Jerome Powell. Nvidia is looking more bullish. Nice breakout with the big news. Unless we lose 200 to dip, we're favoring upside for 205 plus. Nvidia is on a breakout, and that could be more bullish for tech. Apple's looking a little bit weaker. It might be dipping back down towards 268 to about 266, and we'll see if we bounce off that range. But there might be some temporary downside, so please be very, very careful, especially as time goes on. On Netflix, we're trying to rebound right here. Nice accumulation. We're favoring 11.17 as our potential target, and we'll see how it goes from there. MSTR is bouncing off a double bottom. It could be looking for essentially 291, and we'll see how it goes. There might be some temporary upside. Celsius also has a double bottom here. It's going to be favoring basically 62.5, and we'll see what happens from there. For Supermicro, we have a nice looking double bottom here. As long as we don't lose 51.57, we're going to be favoring a pushback up to 54, so keep that in mind. Palantir is also making higher lows. As long as we don't lose 185, we're going to be favoring 192 plus. Rivian has 13.5 as a target. If that breaks, we're looking for 13.75. On SoFi, we're looking more bullish. We're favoring 32 plus. We're looking quite good. AMD is consolidating. As long as we don't lose 255, we're looking pretty good. Might dip to 255, and we'll see how it goes. On ARM, if we lose 172, we're looking for a dip back down to 170. But if we hold this, we're looking for a big bounce for 175. On PayPal, if we end up losing essentially 72, we're looking for a bigger dip as long as we hold this though. I think it could retest 76, actually 77 to fill this imbalance for a temporary bounce. For Coinbase, we could be retesting 349, and we'll see if we bounce back up for 360. Amazon's looking more bullish for 230 plus. Meta's looking more bullish for 757, although it does depend on Jerome Powell. It's still favoring upside. Google's looking like it wants to retest 272. And then Microsoft looks more bullish, favoring 548 to 550. Oracle is more flat right now. It also is making a lower high, which is not the best of signs. May cause a bit of a dip towards like 280 and 277, so be careful with Oracle. The VIX is trying to bounce here, could be retesting 16.98, and we'll see how it goes. The 10-year is kind of flat. The dollar is also kind of flat, trying to bounce for 98.8, and we'll see what happens as time goes on. So my general view of the market is quite simple. I think that SPY and the QQQ are looking more bullish, technically speaking, and Tesla's setup is more bullish, favoring the 470s very soon, right? We look more bullish overall. We might dip tomorrow morning for a 455 retest and then reaccumulate before it tries to bounce again. That's the most likely possibility, but I don't know for sure, because it depends on FOMC, it depends on what Jerome Powell says. And I'm not really a fortune teller. I can't tell you exactly what he will say, so be very open-minded to that. Otherwise, for now, we're just going to play the charts in front of us and then be very careful once Jerome Powell starts speaking. Sometimes you never know what's about to happen. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have an awesome rest of your guys' days. And I'll be back very soon with another update for tomorrow morning before market open. Until then, I wish you all the best and peace out.